Welcome to The Explainer. Have you ever wondered how a simple line of code actually becomes a full-fledged application? Well, today we're going to demystify that entire journey, step by step. So today we're going to go on a journey that really every single developer has to take. We're going to move from just a single lonely file of code to a powerful, well-structured project. You can think of it like leveling up from knowing a few words to, writing a whole novel. All right, let's dive right in. Act 1, writing the core logic. And our first challenge, automation. We hate repeating ourselves, and luckily, so do computers. The key tool to make them do all that heavy lifting for us is the for loop. You can think of a for loop as this tiny, super efficient robot. You just have to give it 3 simple commands. First, where do I start counting? That's your initialization. Second, when should I stop? That's the condition. And third, how do I count? That's the increment. With just those 3 instructions, it becomes this amazing engine for repetition. Okay, let's actually see this thing in action. With just one single line of code inside our loop, we can generate an entire multiplication table. As that loop runs from 1 to 10, the value of x changes every single time, and the computer just does all the math for us. That right there, that is the power of automation. Now, this next part is super important, especially if you're just starting out. See, standard quotes will print exactly what you type, the literal text. But backticks, when you pair them with that $ and curly braces, that tells the computer to look up the value of the variable. This tiny switch is the key to creating dynamic outputs. Okay, so we've got our logic down. Now it's time for Act 2, managing the project. Because as our code gets bigger, we need to start thinking bigger too. This is really the moment we go from just writing code to being an architect. First things first, right? We need a safety net for our code. And that's where Git and GitHub come in. Seriously, think of it like your project's own personal time machine. Git takes these snapshots of your code at every stage, and GitHub is the online vault where you store them. It's the industry standard for a very good reason. But here's the thing you have to remember. You don't want to save everything. Your online folder, your repository, it should be clean, containing only your essential source code. The .gitignore file is basically your project's bouncer. It tells Git exactly which files to leave behind, keeping your project lean by ignoring all those bulky auto-generated files. Every good project needs a rulebook, right? And for TypeScript, that's what the tsconfig.json file is. This thing is the brain of your project. It's the central command center that tells the compiler exactly how to translate your nice, clean TypeScript into the JavaScript that browsers and servers actually understand. And one of the most powerful rules you can set is all about organization. Instead of having this messy mix of your original TypeScript and the JavaScript it generates, you can just tell the compiler, hey, put all your output over here. This simple rule is a total game changer for keeping your project tidy. And here it is. This is that rule in action. With just one line, you create this clean, logical separation between the code you write and the code the machine generates. This single setting is an absolute lifesaver, and it prevents so much confusion as your project starts to get bigger. All right, so our project is working, it's well managed, but now we're hitting the real challenge. What happens when your project just explodes from a dozen files to hundreds, maybe even thousands? Well, that brings us to Act 3, structuring for scale. Just think about it. Imagine you're building a system for a huge university. You can't just throw thousands of files into one folder. It'd be an absolute nightmare, right? A tangled mess you could never navigate. So, how do you do it? So, the solution? You gotta think like an architect. A university isn't just one giant building, is it? No, it's a campus with specialized departments. And in our code, we call these modules. Each module is its own little self-contained unit with one specific job. Admissions, accounting, course info, you name it. They're separate, organized, and way more efficient. But of course, these modules can't just be islands. They can't work in isolation. For the university to function, the departments have to talk to each other. When a student gets admitted, admissions has to tell accounting to send a bill. It's all about that seamless flow of information. In our code, this communication is powered by 2 really simple commands, export and import. Export is basically like you're making a piece of code available. You're putting a book out on the library shelf for everyone to see. And import? That's you going and checking that book out so you can use it in your own module. So what does this actually look like in the code? It's surprisingly simple. Over here, our database file exports a list of students.
Then our main application file imports that list. And just like that, it has access to all the student data. This simple, powerful pattern is really the foundation of modern, scalable applications.
And there you have it. That's the roadmap. We went all the way from writing simple logic to using professional tools to structuring code that can scale up massively. You're not just a coder anymore. You're an architect, a builder of systems. So, the only question left is, what are you going to build next?